Good morning, beauties. Blessings. This finds you all enjoying the beginning of a great week of blossoming bliss for all of we. So I was speaking with some peeps, and I was reading some sharings, and there's been some discussions of late. Oh, my glasses are still on. Regarding the concept of mirroring, which is a very common concept in different languages from different people. For example, Jung and Freud would have said projecting, where we're not seeing something within self that we put onto someone else, is kind of the flip side of what we'll be discussing today. But mirroring is seeing something in someone that might trigger or agitate you in some way, shape, or form. And realizing that the reason that it's bugging you is because somehow, in some way, it is reflective of something inside of you. And I know that this can be confusing because when we say mirror, you're thinking that you're going to see the actual reflection, and sometimes it's not a straight up reflection. We're quite magnificent, we human beings, very multi-layered and multi-dimensional. So not everything is always as obvious as we may think it is based upon what we've read. And yet it is completely obvious if we just take a moment to follow it. So I thought in order to best give an example of the concept of mirroring and the fact that the whole concept regarding mirroring and being able to see within someone else a gift or a message of opportunity for growth, for embracing ourselves in greater self-love, basically. When we see something within another that, again, is causing any kind of distress or upset within ourselves, would be to give a personal example. It's easier to identify that way, so, and no need for me to bring up others. So, well, I guess I'm going to kind of, as this involves others in my example. So there's a business associate that I have, not an angel partner, because the relationship and interaction that I have with my angel partners regarding mirroring would be very different, and I wouldn't be experiencing triggers in the way that I would be when I'm just being me in my day-to-day. There's a different level of consciousness that is engaged within when I'm in relation with my angel partners, when we're journeying together. So, but this was a business associate on a different level, and so we're just, we've been I've known this individual for a while, so I know them relatively well enough to know some of their habits, if you will. And they tend to express their concern about certain things with me on the regular regarding just their life experiences. And I've noticed over the years that a lot of the things that they express their concern regarding are things that they themselves actually do. And sometimes I'm not bothered by it, but sometimes I am. And recently I was. So the first thing that happens in a mirroring experience, so the person is doing something that really, in the grand scheme of things, is not negatively affecting me. Like, they're not causing any harm per se, and they're really not facing something themselves. So why am I experiencing feelings of being bothered, as opposed to maybe wanting to assist them to maybe see with more clarity something I'm seeing, or to just let it go and not be affected? So right away, when there's that something, you, instead of getting lost in the bleh, you want to stop for a second and say, why? What is that all about? So you don't want to, just because you're having a thought or an emotion doesn't mean you have to own it right away. Doesn't mean you have to really yeah, I'm so angry right now. You can actually be like, well, why am I experiencing this? So again, remember, we are magnificent, multi-dimensional, multi-level, perceptual beings of wow. So we can actually be in something as well as being objective. We can experience it and yet not own it. There are so many ways for us to have this gift, this experience we call life. So first and foremost, why am I feeling this? I'm noticing it. I'm not liking it. Why am I feeling it? As soon as we start asking that question, the mind will go looking for the answer. It's like a computer. You plug something in, it goes looking for it. It's amazing. Totally amazing. Of course, we have to be conscious of what we're plugging in, but we can get into that later. Okay, so back to the mirroring. So in my looking, I'm looking for what, so now I have to look at what is really irking me. And so what I discovered in my looking was that I was being irked by the contradiction or the hypocrisy that this person was expressing by having complained so often about X, Y, and Z, and then actually doing X, Y, and Z. And I was just like, bleh. So then I was like, okay, so contradiction, hypocrisy. So now I'm going to take that, right? I'm not going to take the what are they being hypocritical or contradictory about. The specificity of that is theirs. It's too detailed, and I don't resonate with it at all. I don't resonate with complaining about X, Y, and Z and then doing something that is in opposition. None of that was resonating with me. And for a lot of people, when that happens, they're like, okay, there's nothing here. I'm not getting it. And, this whole mirror thing doesn't work. So what about the more global or general of the hypocrisy or contradiction? So I'm looking into that, and then I'm like, okay, so where within you do you feel that you may be contradictory at times or hypocritical at times, that you're not comfortable in making the choice to be that? Because, sometimes we choose to consciously to, let's say, tell a white lie, and we're okay with it. And if you're okay with it, then you wouldn't have been triggered. You would have been like, oh, I see that. Like, if you saw it, it wouldn't be discomforting because you would be okay with it. So this is something discomforting. I'm not looking at something. I'm not giving myself love about something, which is, so going back into looking at it. And now I have to be honest with myself, right? Which is very scary for many people to face our fears, because we're looking at parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily like, and having to own that is, who wants to own that? But that's how we get over it. So where do I feel that I'm being contradictory or hypocritical? And then I'm quiet, and it comes forward and presents itself to me. I'm like, oh, well, it does bother me to think that here I am a holistic enlightenment guide light. My life is dedicated to assisting as many people as humanly possible to shift their consciousness paradigm from fear to love, because ultimately that will shift all of we, and with enough of us who have shifted, which will create the world we all want to be, which is one that is based in love consciousness, which I'm not getting into details about right now. But, and I know that this is my purpose, and I know that I'm very good at what I do, and I really assist people, and I really provide this great, like, I'm this channel for love's wisdom to come through, and it's phenomenal, and yada, yada, yada. But I'm not always following the love's wisdom that I'm receiving myself in my own personal life. Or professional, for that matter. Sometimes I lose my shit. Sometimes I get caught up in my own fears, my own discomforts, my own insecurities, my own worries. And that that causes me discomfort being who I am with everyone. That I'm not always living up to what I'm saying. So I'm the teacher and the student, as we all are continuously, regardless. But there is that discomfort. And then there's further discomfort, because one of the major things that I do teach, whether it's publicly or with my angel partners in our private journeys or play shops or satsangs, whatever, is that you cannot have an expectation of perfection of yourself. There has to be, if you want to be able to make these shifts, you have to be accepting and loving of where the opportunities for growth lie. So the mere fact that I'm actually feeling upset with myself for not being perfect in and of itself is not a loving act. So then it's like one on top of the other. So then there's like this spiraling thing that's happening, where then I stopped and I noted, oh, so this person is allowing you to see where you are judging yourself for being a hypocrite, where therefore there is this room to give yourself more love and acceptance for being the teacher and the magnificent teacher that you are, as well as the student and the magnificent student that you are. And then in sharing this with all of you, to be able to face that fear publicly and declare it openly. And that's release the weight of holding that, because I am owning this is a fear, it's a discomfort that I have. That's not truth, it's not real. And I'm letting you know I'm a human being, and I go through my own things, so on and so forth. And all of a sudden there's this like, oh, it's okay to be me. It's okay that I'm not perfect. It's okay that, yes, sometimes somebody could say, well, that kind of may be seen as hypocritical because you're saying this, but you're not doing this. And you're right. It can be. And this is why, and so on and so forth. And then a conversation engages, and even more love's wisdom is shared. And all of a sudden, the doors have opened wide. And there's no being stuck in this discomfort or being triggered by someone else because you've dealt with it. So what I've just done with you is, one, what we've just done together, because you've allowed this to be, is more apropos to state, is one, to hopefully showcase how we can use mirroring, and how, there is many, many infinite ways by which we may mirror to one another that are not always just straight up, straight on, this is what you're seeing, and therefore you have to look for that exact thing within you. That you've got to give it a little bit of effort and be a little bit open to more general and broader aspects that are being shown, so that you can find the specificity that is your own within whatever you're being shown that's triggering you. Paying attention to triggers and owning them, but not owning the feelings that come with them. Instead, using the trigger to follow the pathway to what has caused it, so we can face it, embrace it through love, release it by transcending it, in accepting it, and again, releasing it through love. This is how we face our fears, which for many of we, which is the last thing that we were able to see, is the biggest fear that we all collectively actually have. Is not, oh, I'm afraid of spiders, or I'm afraid that I'm not good enough. It's actually being able to face the fear that I'm afraid I'm not good enough. I'm afraid of spiders. I don't want to admit that, because that's too big of a thing to admit, because it might make me into this really horrible, monstrous being. But when we admit it, we see that it's just a part of us that is requiring a little bit more love and acceptance. It's not the monster. It's more like the child who's not feeling loved and is therefore taking actions to get negative attention instead of through positive means, or is having a temper tantrum instead of maturely requesting what they need because they're not feeling like they're going to get it, because we're not feeling loved, we're not feeling worthy, we're not feeling deserving. So, and this is why so many people journey with a professional like myself, because it makes it easier to face these fears that we are so horrendously, collectively afraid of looking at, which is really authentically the only way to release ourselves from their negative grasp and allow us to be the earth angels divine, the human family, the community globally that we are, so that we can live in the world that we want to be. So hopefully this has been of assistance again, and for those who are seeking more intimate assistance and are ready to dive into the valley of fears but would like someone to walk there with them, then please do feel free to get in touch with me. You can find a whole whack of information through my profile, my website, rhondasherylipstein.com, which again, I think is actually in this posting for you. You can send me a Facebook message. So many ways and so much information and resources available by which you may journey with me, whether it's personally through my books, my writing, our web TV shows, lots and lots of wonderful opportunities. So on that note, my loves, a most magnificent day, week, and now to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for sharing in these videos with me, because I love them. It's an awesome way for me to feel really connected with all of you. And oh my gosh, so much love's gratitude. So, mwah, bliss kiss to one and all. Namaste in Lakesh Alakin. Until next time, blessedly be.